to Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, some crazy NFL news that could shake things up. And I'll tell you this, Nick Caley, a guy who likes to wheel and deal during the NFL draft, he's going to maybe be licking his chops whenever he watches this video and sees one team that might be a little bit more open to trading up and down in the NFL draft. We'll get into that on today's show. Also, one coach that the Texans should target to add to their staff this offseason. I was at NFL Radio Row during the Super Bowl, and I talked to Brian Baldinger. You might know him from Baldy's Breakdowns. Does some great job talking about offensive linemen, and he pinpointed one coach that every team should be on the phone trying to call up this offseason. And then my takeaways from Super Bowl 60. I know a lot of us watched the game last night, and I think a lot of us have a lot of the same takeaways. So at the end of the show, I'll tell you my three big takeaways from Super Bowl 60. Before we get going, though, shout out to the Noti Gang, Logan, Abraham, Gary, and Kathy. If you're like, what is the Noti Gang? That means you're one of the first 4 people to comment on my videos when it drops. That helps me so much whenever y'all get in there early, comment on the video, like the video. I know not everybody can come support during the live shows, show up, but y'all watching my videos after I put them out, that means so much to me. And if you want to be shouted out on a future Texans show, well, be part of the Noti Gang. Hit that notification bell. All you got to do, hit the sub button, click the Noti bell, and then select the all option. Be one of the first 4 people to comment on one of my videos, and hey, you might see your name up here on the channel very soon. All right, let's get into the crazy NFL news that impacts the Houston Texans, and it's around the Atlanta Falcons. And you're probably wondering, Jeremy, Falcons not in the same division, they're not even in the same conference. How does this tie into the Houston Texans? Just wait. I'll tell you how it ties in to this Texans team moving forward. Just give me one moment. First up, let's break down the news. Marc, Raimondi breaking it down, and if you didn't see this story over the past 24 hours, it is a doozy. Falcons rookie James Pearce Jr. allegedly crashed his vehicle into one being driven by WNBA player Rickea Jackson multiple times and struck a police officer with the vehicle while evading arrest. Now, he was also dating Rickea Jackson, so there's a little domestic action in that as well. According to the criminal complaint obtained by ESPN, more coming to ESPN soon. So, not good for James Pearce Jr., the Falcons' star pass rusher. This is going to be a massive impact for the Atlanta Falcons because they traded up to get him at the end of round 1. They gave up a future first-round pick to get James Pearce Jr. And with brand new GM, brand new head coach, they have a brand new, president of football operations and former quarterback Matt Ryan. There's a lot of changes going on with the Atlanta Falcons. Not only that, we saw this last week that the Falcons are expected to release quarterback Kirk Cousins. So they're not going to have a lot of cap space because they're going to eat a ton of dead money with Kirk Cousins. They don't have a lot of draft capital because they traded up for James Pearce Jr. So, Jeremy, how does this tie into the Houston Texans? Well, I'll tell you this. Because they don't have a lot of draft capital, I believe they only have 5 picks coming up in the 2026 NFL draft and no first rounder. This is a prime candidate if the Texans want to trade up in round 2 or round 3. And we know more than anybody else in the entire NFL, maybe other than the Eagles GM and Howie Roseman, Nick Caley wheels and deals during the NFL draft. And if there's a player the Texans really want to get, because remember, they have 2 second-round picks, they have 2 fourth-round picks in this NFL draft. If there's a player, somebody sliding, and you're like, wow, I think he would be a perfect fit for the Houston Texans, maybe offensive lineman, maybe a defensive lineman, a corner or safety or a linebacker, I don't know. Whatever position the Texans covet at that point in the draft, it could be a lot easier to call up the Atlanta Falcons and say, hey, y'all are in a rough spot. How about y'all, come back a couple rounds. We'll give you some extra picks in this draft to help replenish some of that, void that's going to be left by a Kirk Cousins, by a James Pearce Jr. So good news for Nick Caley in the upcoming draft, a team that is more than likely going to be willing to wheel and deal during said draft. And like I said, Nick Caley, he is that guy. Him and Howie Roseman when it comes to trading during the draft. So another team that might be in a vulnerable spot that the Texans could possibly take advantage of. All right, let's go into some more NFL news that could impact the Houston Texans. The Eagles are hiring Chirs Kuper as their offensive line coach. Sources tell the insiders, this coming in from Tom Pelissero. Kuper spent the past 4 seasons in that same role with the Minnesota Vikings. That's their offensive line coach, where he crossed paths with new Eagles OC Sean Mannion. Now they're teaming up in Philly. And you're another one where you're like, Jeremy, what does this have anything to do with the Houston Texans? Well, this has nothing to do with the Texans, right? Chirs Kuper signing as their offensive line coach. But what does impact the Houston Texans is their Eagles' former offensive line coach in Jeff Stoutland. Does it make sense for the Texans to try to bring him in on their staff? He has been with the Philadelphia Eagles since, I believe, 2012, 2013 as their O-line coach, as their run game coordinator. He got that promotion, I believe, around the Eagles Super Bowl in 2017. So this could be a massive move for the Houston Texans if they want to bolster their coaching staff. They haven't done a lot of movement. I mean, the biggest, addition to the coaching staff, I would say, is James Ferentz, the tight end coach. But does it make sense to get Stoutland? Because he is highly regarded as maybe the best offensive line coach in the entire National Football League. And if you don't take my word for it, listen to what Brian Baldinger had to say whenever I asked him about Stoutland at Radio Row before Super Bowl 60.
He didn't retire. I think he's going to coach. I bet his phone was ringing off the hook today. Anybody that could land Jeff Stoutland will make their team infinitely better for a long time. He does things that nobody else in this league does. And I don't know why they don't, and I don't have to reveal what he does, but his things he does, nobody else does. He's simply the best in the business.
Shout out to Brian Baldinger. Had a nice conversation with him at Radio Row, and we were able to chop it up a little bit. I really respect his football mind and his opinions, especially from one former offensive lineman to another. I think he's one of the best in the biz when it comes to breaking down offensive line play, and I agree with him. I think it would 100% help out the Houston Texans because he's been with multiple different head coaches, and he's coached multiple different offensive lines there in Philadelphia, different guys coming in and out. And Jason Kelce, maybe one of the best centers of all time, said he devotes his entire career in the NFL to one Jeff Stoutland. Said he wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for his mentorship and his guidance. The only problem with that comes is that this means it would be a demotion for Cole Popovich, because bringing in a guy like a Jeff Stoutland, he is going to want a title. He's going to want run game coordinator. He's going to want assistant head coach, some sort of title promotion where a lot of teams will be willing to give him that sort of title. I don't know with the Houston Texans, because like I said, that'll probably mean Cole Popovich will have to take a little step over to the side and kind of listen to what Jeff Stoutland has to say. I don't think they're going to do that to Cole Popovich. He's close with Nick Caley. He's close with Nick Caserio. So I doubt that they'll be willing to bring in Jeff Stoutland, even though he is one of the best in the business. What he's been able to do in Philadelphia with that offensive line, he basically saved Mekhi Becton's career by him coming to Philadelphia. Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles to ever play under Jeff Stoutland during his time in Philadelphia. Jordan Mailata, a former rugby player, now one of the top left tackles in the NFL, coached by Jeff Stoutland. I think he would help out this team a ton. I just don't think the Texans are willing to move on or demote Cole Popovich. They're very high on him. Nick Caserio loves his buddy from the New England Patriots, so doesn't look like that is going to happen. Now, coming up, I have my takeaways from Super Bowl 60, but before I talk about my takeaways from last night, got to tell you about PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there. Join the millions of users and sign up today. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It's super simple. Just pick more or less on at least 2 to 6 players' stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports. Anything basketball, baseball, hockey, MMA, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. Now, I wanted to show you a lineup because we always talk, game to game. They also have season-long projections. So that would be fun to do a baseball season-long projection. And I'm going with a very Astros-heavy lineup here, former and current. Let's take a look at it. I'm going Breggy to go more than the 21.5 home runs. Then I'm going Jose Altuve, give me the more. Yordan Alvarez, give me the more. And Kyle Tucker, I'll go the less. Why? Because F him. That's why. I am so pissed that Kyle Tucker went to LA, went to the dark side over there. But it's okay, because I think Houston might get the last laugh on that one, or at least I hope we do. You can make a lineup just like this, season long or game to game. Like I said, whatever sport you want, just do it over on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, here are my takeaways from Super Bowl 60. And the first one, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm have some copium, maybe I'm, whatever, just trying to cope with the fact that the Texans got knocked out in the divisional round once again. But call me crazy. I think the Texans would have matched up better against the Seahawks. We saw them play the Seahawks on Monday Night Football, and yes, they lost to Seattle, but it was a much closer game than what we saw last night between the Patriots and the Seahawks. I know probably, two different teams, but at the end of the day, the Texans, and I think we all are in agreement, had such a golden opportunity this year, playing a backup quarterback in the AFC title game against the Denver Broncos. The Texans, I think their defense would have smothered Jarrett Stidham, and then you make it to the Super Bowl, then you play the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, heck, it might have been the most boring game of all time if the Texans ended up in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. It might have been like 6-3 at the end of the day. But I do think they would have matched up much better than the New England Patriots. I can say this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, the Patriots did beat the Houston Texans, so they earned their right to get to Super Bowl 60. It's just upsetting because it took our quarterback having maybe the worst game of his entire career for the Texans to lose that game, and the defense still kept us in it, which is so upsetting because, man, I really do feel like if they were in that game last night, it definitely would have been a much closer affair between the Texans and the Seahawks if that was the matchup. My second takeaway, and I saw it last night because, both quarterbacks struggled. Sam Darnold did not play an excellent game. He didn't win an MVP. Drake May, had a horrible game, right? He was awful. The offensive line was really bad too, but Drake May was not good. But the one difference in that game last night was the Seahawks run game. Kenneth Walker obviously won Super Bowl MVP, and if you watched my video right before the Super Bowl, I actually called it. I said I think Kenneth Walker is going to win MVP. Ended up winning. So maybe I know ball a little bit. Maybe don't believe me, go watch my video that I put out yesterday. I'm just saying. But I do think the Texans need a better run game. I like Woody Marks. I think he is a great complementary back, a 1-2 punch. We just don't have the 2 or the 1, right? Like we have Woody Marks. We just need a thunder to the lightning. We need another running back to complement Woody Marks and help be a really good backfield. And then we also don't have great run blocking, right? That's the first step. So the Texans, they need to work on their interior of their offensive line, help out, get more physical. That has been my mantra the entire offseason. The Texans on the interior must get more physical. We saw that last night with the Seattle Seahawks being able to run the ball with Kenneth Walker. He was fantastic. Also, Kenneth Walker, a free agent, so maybe he comes to Houston. I don't know. But either way, I think the Texans need to improve their run game this year. We all talk about C.J. Stroud. Obviously, he has to play better. But what will help him play better is that the Texans have a better run game. Because if you go back to that Patriots game, yeah, C.J. Stroud played bad. The run game was non-existent up against the Patriots in the divisional round. They need to fix that going into 2026. And lastly, probably another reason why I want Jeff Stoutland also. What I saw last night from the Seahawks, excellent defense, right? Excellent defense. Basically won them that game yesterday. Texans have a better defense than the Seahawks. This Texans defense can win a Super Bowl. I wholeheartedly believe that. With the pieces that we have, if they stay healthy, if they are able to get back into the playoffs, go on a run, this defense is good enough to win a freaking chip. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter coming off the edge. You have that secondary with Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, Kalen Bullock, Jalen Petrie roaming around there. This defense is 100% good enough to win a Super Bowl, which is why we were all upset watching that game last night, because we saw the Seahawks playing and they were fantastic. Their defense was awesome. But I think all Texans fans know, especially if you watched all 17 games this year during the regular season, watch the 2 playoff games, you know the Texans defense was absolutely legit, the number 1 unit in the entire National Football League. And they missed it. They missed the boat this year. Now, there's still hope for next season. All these guys are still under contract. We basically have pretty much the same defense running it back in 2026. You do need to add some defensive tackle help, probably another safety as well. But I do believe the window is still open, and this Texans defense can take this team to the promised land and hopefully one day hoist that Lombardi trophy. All right, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. If you made it to the end, you're an absolute real one. Thank you so much for watching all throughout this show. Let me know you're a real one, though. Spam those H's down below in the comments section. Until next time, I'll see y'all on the other side. Have a great day, and let's go Tex.